Hey,
Hello, everyone. How's it going?
it's going. I think we're in.
I'd like to introduce to you our guest tonight, Mr. Jeffrey Daly, and he's known as Tarot Ask Backwards. He's an accomplished author of poetry, and this is Speaks for Itself, one of his books. And his next book, Some Good Writ. And he's working on a third book currently. And how's that going for you, Jeff? Are you seeing some progress?
I'm stuck. I'm stuck because I have a publisher on whom I'm relying to do some of the keyword optimization that I need to have done. And for the audiobook I just put out, which is the companion to Some Good Writ. So I told them I'd like to have it out by the end of the year before Christmas. So it could still happen. But given the pacing of this company and the sort of way I've been handled so far, I don't know if it's maybe better business practice that they're doing because things aren't moving as quickly as I'd like. But then again, I'm not there to kind of be the steward of all of it. So I don't know if there's something not going on or going on. But last time I threw cards on it, it was just that they weren't moving fast enough for me. Last time I think you read on it actually was when I asked. And we got they weren't moving fast enough, but it's like we said, or as we said before, I'm not the commodity here. The book is. So wherever the book falls in terms of their priority, which I can't expect a poetry book to be everyone's priority, is where it falls. But what they did tell me was that the third one needs a lot of editing, so that's kind of got me concerned. So they just better not edit it to the point where the breaks and the pauses are different, because even though that doesn't seem like something that would matter to them, as an artist who wrote it and knows where the breaks and pauses were, it was written that way for a reason. Even if at points grammatically it might sound off, or syntax wise it might sound off, it was written, you know what I mean, for a reason. So
yeah, I would be a very poor writer because the grammar and the syntax would be exactly how I speak, because that's how I hear the wording in my head, before it gets committed to paper.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law was a school English teacher, and so when I wrote her, I used to think she had the red and the blue pencil in her hand, and she was correcting everything but it doesn't matter as long as you're communicating and the communications get back and forth.
Yeah, and I agree. And
so, yeah. We have Hershey and Fatima. Thank you for joining us, ladies. And Jeff, how did you get started in tarot?
By coming on YouTube. In 2018, the first reader I ever watched was Truth Warrior, and she would read on on Trump and everything. Another Pisces like you, and she was the first one that I came across. Then the next one I met through her was Scott, with whom I'm friends now. I've got 2 videos I did with him on my books. Well, actually, one on my past lives because he did my Akashic reading. Scott, not Scorpio Sun, the other one, Scott Spiritual Essence. And he did my Akashic reading, and then he had my 2 books on. It was around April of 22. But I started watching him for political reads too. And then all of a sudden, I want to say because he was selling decks, that was when I think I really picked up a tarot card for the first time and started to understand them. I had committed to memory through all the times I'd seen them, a lot of what the cards meant textbook wise, but I don't think until I actually started growing my intuition through the exercise of reading that my gifts really came into singular focus, meaning that they were mine and they weren't the result of just programming based on what the cards meant. So that's how I got into them. And I have YouTube to thank for that. And luckily they came around at a time when it was during all these trips in and out of, I think, different hospitals for my father before he passed. That happened to be the time where I actually started to learn tarot in the sense that I was actually practicing with it. But YouTube, yeah, totally YouTube.
And on YouTube, do you see yourself as a poet first or a tarot reader?
Oh, I love that question. I see myself actually as a poet first, and I'll tell you why. This has sort of come full circle, and I saw it yesterday on one of my shows where I can download something based on the imagery of the energy of the person I'm getting or objects that might appear within view about the person. And I can channel a certain element of poetry that on occasion has a resonance based on a reading that it might be appropriate to, given the person that's asking, and I may not know it. But I've noticed myself using both seamlessly in the course of reading and in the course of grounding myself before I channel. So I think of myself as a tarot. I think of myself as a poet first and actually a tarot reader second, because until I actually commit myself to their energy, which is based in the prose or the tarot, the prose that I come out with a lot of the times first, I haven't done my way of enmeshing my energy in either the cards or in the question of the person asking about themselves. So I consider myself firstly a poet and then a tarot reader and a channeler somewhere in between both, because poetry is channeling. I think tarot reading to some degree is channeling too, because it's what your guides are giving you at that exact moment. But I would say a poet first.
And I do see that in the way you are. And I would even say that you are much like a rap or hip hop artist, where you come up with the prose when you're shuffling the cards. You know, when somebody's asked you a question and you come up with that rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
It's very extemporaneous and very quick. So it is. It's like, whose line is it anyway? You know, you get an idea or improvisation. That's what I'm trying to come up with. Thank you for the wording. Thank you for being here, Hypnocy and Joe G. Blessings. So I see a lot of channeling in your reading also. I mean, you can tell when you shift, and you do sort of announce it and say, well, this card usually is this, But in this reading, I'm hearing or I'm feeling that this is the way to go with it. So I think you're a very quick on your feet reader that can read the situation and the feelings, and your guides are tuned in.
Yeah, and I think what happens most of the time with this is that and this is also a function of the skill that you've helped me with as far as on your shows on Sundays with the intuitive interactive tarot journal or interactive intuitive tarot journal. I always get your two eyes mixed up. When I'm hearing your stories and I've got a picture in my head, so in other words, you're sharing with me something that your energy is embodying, right? I'm able to hear my own story based on the words and the manner in which your words are soothing me, because you and Amanda and a couple other people, Tropical Empress, have a really calming voice on me. Spiritual Growth Tarot is another one. So what I'm saying is the lilting sort of voice and the ability to take a tarot card and say, I'm hearing this at a certain time or channel. I'm almost being drawn to through the grounding that you achieve through the poetry in the beginning, which is like the opening salvo to someone's reading or their understanding of what it is that I'm going to be doing for them. I'm able to divide it up into like 3 different segments to where it's partitioned to the point where they actually feel as if they're getting a different sense. Or they might hear me like this, as Joji probably notices. So
yeah, here's the throat changes.
And there are times too where the throat change actually does affect how I deliver something, or intentionally, of course, obviously, but there could be a persona change in the way that reading is delivered, more harshly or more emphatically based on the card's meaning than it would have been otherwise. So there is inflection based on the manner in which I'm channeling.
Well, I enjoy your poetry. It's very thought-provoking, and I see where you're reaching your shadow in places, because some of it is very dark, and there's a touch of cynicism in all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm really proud of myself when, just like that deck that I shouldn't be using because I get dinged. I got dung for it. No, dinged. I got dung for it because I used it. Yeah. I'm still using the tarot because the Valentina tarot, because the imagery is just so, it's the deck that I find the most beautiful, as strange as it sounds, and the most perverse in its beauty, because what it does is it reduces everything to this sort of lower level chakra sort of element, to where you can actually take the idea that you're getting from the question and siphon meaning in more base and general ways, because in all honesty, a lot of the time I am pulling from generality when I'm reading it first. And then I'm seeing things based on those generalities, but it's really the synthesis of the cards that means so much. And I don't get that from the regular Rider-Waite, because everything is so rote. I do better when you give me cards that are abstract, or you give me the Valentina tarot and there's this synthesis of meaning among images that seem a little bit disparate, but the symbolism of what the card means is there, only with a twist. and there could be something in that little twist that I'm seeing that actually pulls the story of someone that they don't realize in a certain way. If you look at the Rider-Waite and you know the meanings of those cards and you do the same reading, you might be confined more toward beginning, middle, end, and as this, instead of a story, then the life story is what we're trying to tell through the cards. So to me, it's better when the familiarity that you have with something goes a little bit out the window, so that you don't sacrifice meaning for generality. Like this is how you're going to feel at this point. That's how you're going to feel at the next point. This is what happened in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that with the structures being too strong in like a Celtic, which I totally believe in, the Celtic Tarot and assigning, I believe in systems. I believe that certain energies will pop up where they're supposed to. But if you're adhering to too much of the meaning of what the Rider-Waite card is, you're only going to hurt yourself in the end, and potentially the person you're reading on, because there's more of a story somewhere in the ether that you're missing. So I don't think it's all getting back to your initial question. I don't think that's where the different parts of where I come in and I go out, and then comes in, or the pendulum will come in at a certain point because I feel it needs to. Or if I start with the pendulum and then I want to throw cards on some ridiculous question, and in some cases it will be true. I've only seen it maybe 2 or 3 times, but it comes out that way. Whereas a simple yes, no, in its generality, is beautiful too. So,
do you read cards for yourself?
Do I read cards for myself? Yeah, but you know what? I think I do it poorly because I'm too much in my own head. The problem with that is, and that's why I ask other readers to read on me. I don't think that my ability and my lack of ability compared to someone else's, or maybe, is what makes the reading good. I think I'm too analytical sometimes when I do read on other people, or when I'm getting all kinds of information. I'm second guessing the information because the information's coming from either symbology or some sort of place where there is resonance, but I don't know what that resonance is. So when I try to read on myself, I'm like, is this me or is this the cards? Like, is this really me? Is this really what it's trying to tell me? Like, I'll throw the cards on a question if I'm like, well, like, Dad, what message do you have for me today? And I'll throw the cards. And then I have to interpolate what his meaning in his diction would be, what he'd be saying. And then I also have to interpolate, well, what would he want from me? And all this other stuff that shouldn't play into it. So I do it, but I don't like to. Because it's not that I've ever tested it to see how right or wrong it is. It's just that I don't like the feeling of it.
Okay. Here's a question. Either go back in time or project in history. How will you know, or how did you know when you made it as a YouTube personality?
Another good question. How did I know I made it when I started to be able to go live by myself? That's when I knew I made it, because I started for so long believing that the way to do it was to do it with recorded videos. And I'm glad in a way that I don't have the skill to edit, that I don't have the skill to, set up. With my motor skill problem, I'm very bad at things artistic, but also very bad at athleticism or anything that involves coordination or setting a camera up or anything like that. And if it involves a lot of work, I get very tired easily. Obviously, by looking at me, you can tell why. But when I could go live and hold conversations with people was when, and then that burgeoned was when I knew I could foster my own growth. And I didn't have to rely on someone else. So when I could go live and host it, my next challenge is trying to do and host lives myself with other people, because I think that component with because I'm a passive person, believe it or not. I am a passive person. I would find it difficult to host a show. And I've only done it like twice and feel like I'm totally in control of it. I'm not really that comfortable with it yet. So that's the next measure for me of growth.
It's hard for me to hold a thought and an audience and try to do stream of consciousness and keep things going. So I enjoy having a guest so we can bounce back and forth off of each other.
That's another good point you make that I just forgot about, because there are times at which I'm like, I should be saying something right now, but I have nothing to say. So unless I can go, which I can do, and one thought leads into another, or I can force that issue, then I'm good. But if it's going to be awkward pause, the way it was on some other show for an indeterminate number of minutes, then I think it's awkward. And I've kind of grown out of that.
Well, the late night slot sort of endears itself to that type of thing. It isn't awkward when Scott Scorpio Sun or Amanda go on late night and they're just shuffling cards or just thinking about something. It goes on a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. We're not entertaining people like Big Brother. There's not an audience of millions for us.
No live feed, but there is a live feed. Well, yeah, but for me, when it goes from being fearful in that moment to what you're going to do next, that's when I think that kind of takes over and it says, fuck this, I'm not doing it anymore. Like, I'm going to end this show. You kind of know when something has crested and when it's ebbing. So I know I never had a problem with that when things were going well, but if things were going slow, choppy, I would try to force the issue, and I don't do that anymore. But there was this one reader with whom I did a show, and I found like the actual process good, in the sense that we would sit and write poetry together. The only problem is there were these awkward periods of 5 minutes, Thomas, sometimes where there was no silence, there was nothing said. And I don't think a show can exist that way long term.
But it is the creative process. It needs time.
True. It depends on the person.
That might be one for a pre-taped, and while you're thinking about it, go back and edit all those that silent time out and make it move a little faster. But I mean, there was no. I didn't see any fault with how that. I think the program that I'm thinking you're talking about, that format is just fine.
Well, I had a different take on it, and they agreed with me that it was kind of awkward. But again, it's the perspective of what you're looking for on these channels. You could be looking for silence and meditation, like they have, those 3 minutes of Zen on YouTube. If you've got, which we have in here, the NFL Sunday Ticket, and they throw into it the most awkward Zen music. during NFL Sunday Ticket on Sundays. And it's like, why? So to me, it's not so much the type of atmosphere of the pause, it's how awkward maybe the pause is ultimately. So you sort of make your point valid there, because maybe people are coming in looking for a respite from, the noise in their own head. So who knows? There could definitely be that validity to what you're saying too.
Well, I think back to the movie Moulin Rouge. That first 20 minutes is very taxing and tiring because the rapid cuts and everything's going on. And this scene,
it's so frenetic. I remember that.
Just like, and then to put the contemporary music to something that's a period piece is just mind jarring. And I see that as a stylistic choice of the editor and Baz Luhrmann. But I mean, I was exhausted after I saw that movie the first time in a theater, and people got up and left because they just couldn't handle it. The bombardment of, like living in 1984 with the 4 TV screen walls and immersed in tennis instructions and whatever, So, okay, let's go into Jeff Bailey's future. What do you see for your YouTube channel in a year? Is there any benchmarks that we can look forward to, or?
Well, that's an important. It's an important question, which I need to address personally, as well as in public, because there are so many. I don't consider them flaws. I consider them areas for growth. I still want to do readings where I have an overhead camera on me, and how badly I've struggled with that in the past with the orientation and all that stuff, to the point where I've had to literally take stills of the cards I get and then, post them after the lives. So, what you're very good at as far as editing goes is where I want to start learning. I also really want to start, as I've said many times before, integrate numerology, astrology, because if you think about it, well, you don't have to think about it. It's true. All of them have the same sort of structural foundation. And that structural foundation, if you understand it, when it overwhelms in a certain area, can have a definite effect on how you interpret cards for people. I really want to become more adept at, learning like things like, which I'm doing now, that the 5 of Cups is, Mars in, Scorpio, and that, Saturn in Pisces is, the, excuse me, the 8 of Cups. So, and then understanding too, in everyday parlance on these channels, people talk in these terms like we're going into Neptune and Pisces now. And, so what it is basically is synthesizing everything, because with the numerology and with the astrology and with all those things we know about the planets and what we know about numerology and what 7s mean and what 6s mean, we would become much better readers if we were able to recognize, Thomas, the patterns in the cards that are returned, because we only know them through the ability to recognize them. So if we learn them, we don't have to learn them rote, but we can learn through dedication to all of those things to a varying degree, depending upon how many eggs we want to put in each basket. So like for me right now, it's just like, well, and then there's the attendant number that comes with the card. So it's about the technical and the art of astrology for me right now. I am not one that is any more believing, and I've done this, and I freely admit it. I have used sites like Sprizzy, or I've had people come to me and say, we can increase your numbers by doing this and this. They don't work, because until I started to do lives it was an inflation of number. And I'm still to some degree believing it is, because there's no commensurate rule that says how many people you have for subscribers. You should have Y number of people in your chats on average. But I don't have a sense for how that works. So until I do, there's no sense in dropping money into things like that anymore. Especially when the 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 work is all fan funded, and it should be fan funded, because that reciprocity, it can be so hard to be asked to give, that when you have a stable number of people, like as you do, I do, Hershey does, that come to your chats within a certain circle, and some of our circles overlap. That's one thing. And then getting over the hurdle, because this creates mental blocks, is another thing I want to get past for my channel this year. When someone is on, I don't want to be on when they're on, or competing with them when they're on.
Yeah, you just have to remember that nobody's got set spots. And if it's going to be a one-time thing and you're not always on that spot at the same time as like one of your favorite collaborators, you just got to do it. I mean, Saturday nights for the longest time was run Unconditional Love Tarot, and nobody dared go on against him. But I don't believe I have a big overlap with Ron's channel. I mean, I've gone into his chat and see some people that I'm familiar with, but I would say 80% of them I haven't seen in my lives. They may view after the fact, which a lot of people do. And so I think it's just fine to go on whenever is convenient for you and your guest.
And that's as it should be. But what's so interesting about it is I do know that there is overlap. There's a significant degree of overlap with someone that's on 5 times a week, like Scott Scorpio Sun, which I don't begrudge him for, because I'm constantly in there, shouting out to him coming in. But I know this is really important. When something's really, really important to me, I will go on. I won't wait, because a part of this stuff that I get, where my downloads come from, some of they're time sensitive, not like, they must be done now. People need to know, we're all gonna, whatever. No, it's not like that. But when the fluidity of the download comes to you, I kind of want to get on right then, because I feel like I'm being called to come on then. So that's the thing. Unless I can write it all down, journal it, or maybe make it into the framework of a better show. But I don't even do that anymore, because I think the way a lot of these shows work, they go in their own direction based on what the chats are, based on where the energy is. I mean, I have these themes that never really, and this is an Arian trait. This is an Aries issue. A lot of ideas, but nothing, and a lot of times that sticks, meaning long-term. It's like planting the seed and being the facilitator, but never seeing the loyalty that I should have to a vision to see it through the way I'd like to. Like the one I really want to work on right now is Card, which is Creators Apocalyptic Read Daily. The only problem is the name of it conflicts with the idea that I would be on daily to do that, which I wouldn't. The downloads that I get in the morning, and those morning shows are, as you said earlier, extemporaneously.
Yeah, I love your morning show, and what you got from a dream or a vision, or just sitting there meditating. You get a lot of messages different ways.
And that's the thing, is it's like, to me, and even in the minutia of titling, or series that were supposed to be continued by me, when you impose all kinds of rules on yourself about how many different types of shows you should do based on, a theme, based on a title or a theme, you kind of restrict yourself in other ways. So, and I only have so much time. I mean, most people who do run these shows too only have so much time, because the ones that are, really polished, where they do great editing and things like that and have these kick-ass intros and everything, is you know a lot of work that is enervating. In addition to, people don't realize how tiring it can be to be an energy invader of someone else, or to take someone's energy on, how enervating that can truly be. And I don't begrudge it, because it's addictive, but it is almost like a drug to be a tarot reader, because you are hitting off of someone else's energy, and they're infusing you with that because they trust you. And there's nothing more adrenalizing than having a feeling of loyalty and compassion to something. So what I'm trying to say is, like, these shows that are theme driven are a lot less fulfilling than the actual spontaneity of reads, because if I'm committing myself to an ideal, that is not even the biggest ideal, which is the ideal of, fidelity to concept. The bigger thing for me is connecting to the person that's decided to subsidize however much left of their day they have, like Fatima, or, Judith Anderson, or you, or whoever comes to me. So I can't think about long-term goals. I have those goals, right, where I want to develop shows, but those goals kind of conflict with the day-to-day, minute, right, reality of what is now. And to me, that's more important to me, because I do believe that time is not an issue we should concern ourselves with. It's a man-made concept that creates all kinds of problems. So if I'm going to go with that higher spiritual principle, I better cut out all the other stuff and make room for what in the moment feels good.
I'm a highly analytical, mathematical person, so numbers count to me. Do numbers count to you? And what do you see? Compare a year from now, idealize it in your mind to the numbers today. Tell us your number today, and tell us your number a year from now.
Well, it's weird because again, I'm going deeper into the roots than I probably should, but I look at some of the people that have come into my orbit, like Joji, or like recently Ben, Beneficial Tarot, or there were another couple of people who've come in. I think Zen Tarot, or I can't remember, exactly. So I don't like to focus on the number. I like to focus on the breadth of the people, because for me, what's difficult to quantify about this, Thomas, is where numbers are concerned. How do I get people from the poetry community who do these morning shows where they're up at sometimes, and I don't mean Bill, I mean people like they have their writing workshops, or their what do they call it? They're not even poetry slams on Facebook. They don't even do those. And I find that so could be of benefit to that community. But they do writing classes. I think the writing classes, by comparison to the things that I do on my show, are far more not boring, but what they're doing, I want those communities to match. So if I had to
more like journaling homework.
The way I'm thinking about numbers is so different from a metric that I must have X number of subscribers by. I really feel that as people, we're not. This community might be niche, but I don't think we're niche. I think, and what I do is very niche. So I feel I was selfish enough to believe, or self-aggrandizing enough to believe that my niche would attract more people than it has to my lives.
Well,
But I'm
I find with
yeah.
double niching like you have is it's hard to find that Venn diagram where the tarot people and the poetry people overlap. So you're further limiting already smaller audiences than an entertainment channel like Mr. Beast or something like that. You know,
Right.
I'll never get numbers like that. You know, that's just
Right.
unattainable.
But there's this term called adjacent. So I sometimes think that the people who write and who channel and who do different types of channeling, who blog, um, who are introverts, you know, there might be some sort of way to say that they too have a passing interest in tarot and spirituality. So for me to put a premium on how that goes out into the world isn't for me to say. However, um, what hypnicity is saying, how do you measure joy? All good things are coming from the joy. I mean, I have a moon in Cancer and a midheaven in Virgo. So my my approach to um intuition's pretty strong, but I also have the need like you, where with a midheaven in Virgo, the professionalism, I get very jealous of other people with numbers. I also get very jealous of people with very polished channels who look better, who do, but then I say to myself, but no one's, I mean, there are people who have done what I've done and who will do it and are continuing to do it. But with the flair and with the spontaneity, I don't know how much more I'm going to attract, or how, you know, I can't know. I feel sometimes too, it's always that one thing, you know, you get that one or two subscribers, or those subscribers that kind of know, and they have, I know, more influence, so they'll help. But if I had to put a number on it, I just want to get to the point where, um, you know, to me, magic would be 8,000. That would be magic to me. I feel like the ones that grew a lot heavier, that took a longer time to grow to 12 or 13, they've gotten better in their period of time. So I'm basing it on the time I've seen them grow and how their channels and their abilities and their other stuff have grown. Um, Thank you, Joji. But like, you know, it's that constant thing of, do you do this because it's art, or do you do this because you want your art to be heard and seen? It's not an unfortunate reality to want both. So I often will go to measures, and as a writer, I've sunk money into things like online book club, or using Amazon, you know, promos for a day where you pay nothing for my book and they give it away for free. And then it soars to the top for a day. And then you watch the drop precipitously. And I'm getting a ping on this in my right ear, because it's been a very important thing. Which is more important, to be heard or to be sold and heard? Well, obviously being sold and heard is better, but you can't be sold and heard if people don't know your commodity. So I feel as if I need someone maybe more an inveterate influencer in that poetry community, or within that, and then another one within the spiritual community to go bang. Because, in other words, for my numbers to go bang, because I've seen people um, off of, say, someone, and I think you know to whom I'm referring. She will come and do guest spots on their channel, and they might get a benefit in numbers, but the benefit in numbers doesn't seem to last or to help. It doesn't seem to drive up their views. The only thing that I've seen quantifiably that lately that I found kind of miraculous, and I don't know why it's happening for them, but I'm glad, is Mark Spirit Whisperer. Somehow his videos now are getting in the thousands of views. So what I'm trying to say to you is there was something that must have switched and clicked between.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a niche too, but he's got pet lovers, and
he does have a niche.
The majority of Americans have cats or dogs or both, and you know, when we have pets, we lose them, and I think that's you know, some of the more tender-hearted people out there, you know, want to connect, want to know that they did right by their pet while they were alive, and you know, gave them a joyful life and all that. So I'm really glad that that's happening for him, and it just be something that the YouTube algorithm, when they changed that, it found that commonality to grow his audience for him. So kudos.
Was that what it was? See, that to me, that's fascinating, and that's another problem right there. Is, you know, I love you, YouTube. I love YouTube, but I don't know how they get algorithms. I don't know.
The algorithm is never for the creator; it's always for the viewer. So it's based on their past patterns and what they watched, and what they swiped away from quickly on shorts, and what they watched in shorts. So they experiment and try to find overlaps between the things. So it's always it's pulling views from the viewer. It's suggesting things that the viewer is going to watch to keep them on YouTube longer and longer and longer. So that's why we have the ability to say, hey, you like this show? You know, check out this one, and put an end screen on there for the last 20 seconds or so.
And I've seen that. Add to that, I've seen that work for me. When I'm looking at videos, if I'm focusing for the last hour on nuclear holocaust, they'll bombard me with that number of videos. But then I go and do one of something else entirely, or I watch a music video. Then they'll come back and throw the music feed at me, you know, or if for, you know, a period of time, and then assuming that I'm not going to stay on music for a certain number of minutes, then they'll start throwing a mishmash of everything. And that's when I get frustrated as someone, because then I don't know where I want to go, because there are either too many options or there are too few based on
well, it is a Google creation. This is a Google creation. And remember when the internet, Google started to get popular on the internet, and he went down the rabbit hole. And then something in this article like gets you curious, and then you go down the ancient aliens rabbit hole. And then, you know, it's like, it's a nonlinear mind, and that's what the algorithms try to predict based on patterns in the past.
And I feel like it's partly at the beginning. It was the beginning of artificial intelligence, if you think about it. All of that stuff, Google, and it really was.
So I think that my viewers and subscribers are my best advertisers, because if they know somebody who's into tarot, they might say, hey, have you ever seen Thomas at Tarot Your Way? He's doing a series where he's teaching one card at a time, 1 hour on a Sunday, you know, and he's got some videos on it to break things up. It does the story so you can journal or create poetry or paint or whatever. You know, that's the kind of growth that you want to get. You know, if you buy it, it's a temporary thing.
It's a temporary thing, but the thing that is, you assume things like Sprizzy know the algorithm. You assume that the people that created Sprizzy know the algorithm. And I think I learned the hard way that was not the case. I love Sprizzy, but And the other alternative is Google Ads, about which I know nothing because I've never tried it. So, but it's like Sprizzy. But
doing this can cost you absolutely no money. You can do it on your cell phone and have a channel, or you can be a gear guy and get the best camera and the best studio and the best green screen and the best lighting and the best microphone. You can spend a lot of money on it. So speaking of money, have you spent more money on your YouTube or on your poetry in the time that you've been doing YouTube?
In the time I've been doing YouTube as a creator on YouTube.
Yeah.
I would have spent more on. I would say I've spent more on books and advertising than I have on actual effort with YouTube, and because the effort doesn't feel like effort to me when I'm on YouTube. It feels like it's effort to me when I'm trying to figure out the best way to use YouTube or other platforms to my advantage, whether it's Substack or anything. But I have sunk before I went on as a reader. In 2021, I had sunk to the tune of I did it out $52,000 just on Bookstagram and things like that, depleting any savings we had left before my dad died.
Wow.
But I want to talk about that because we didn't really go a lot into that, and I was kind of hoping we would, because the numbers, though they were in my head, were always there. The reason that I have 25,000 people on Instagram, that's no accident. That was, I had connected through a lot of bookstagrammers who always said they could make your books a hit. And in the beginning, and the same thing with Online Book Club, you have to pay to get your book to be book of the day. So, like, if, for instance, you wanted a book of the day feature, it's like 15 grand. Now, I never did those, and I kind of wish I had. But the problem is I'm a sucker for any good idea. I'm a sucker for anything that I think I care more. But what that should tell you is I care desperately about being heard, to the point I'm willing to give more than I have. Or when I did have it, I gave it. So to me, I'm giving what I have as a spiritual person. What I can't give in money, I give in time, or what I give in time, I can't give in money. Well, in certain instances, I was giving both because I could. Now I can't. So the thing.
May we table the ins and outs of the money discussion YouTube first?
Okay. I'd be good with that. Yeah.
I'm going to be on with Hershey for a Spirit Box session. So remember, everybody, to go and like Jeff's feed for this stream. Comment after. We'll have part 2. Maybe part 3, maybe part 4. We'll just tear Jeff apart and see exactly what his parasite is inside his body.
Thank you for those that came, and for those that will show, and for those that have always been with me and will continue to. Yeah.
Bye, everybody. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be with us, and thank you for that. I'm going over to Hershey the Shadow Reader. Please tune in to Tarot Ask Backwards and see Jeff. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and go out and make it a great day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.